David Rusenko.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. You hear me all right? Cool. So I wanted to start by just going over the Weebly story a little bit, telling you kind of how we got to where we got to today and some of the lessons we learned along the way. So what is Weebly, first of all, if some of you guys haven't heard of it? Weebly is a simple and powerful way to create a site. People want to create a site, they want to create a blog, they want to sell things online, and they just want it to work. They don't want any of the frustrations around it. So let me show you a couple Weebly sites. The first site is a photographer from Toronto, showcasing their photography. The second site is an interior designer from Oregon. They've actually been featured in Dwell magazine for their interior designs, run their website on Weebly. The third site is a graphic designer from California. You can see all these sites just look great, and not one line of HTML or CSS was written for these sites. This next site is pretty special. This is Brian. He's 80 years old. He retired, and his passion is building ukuleles. And he started doing it in his spare time, went on Weebly, and created a website. What do you know, the word got out, and he could build a couple ukuleles out of his shop per month. He now has a 3 to 6 month back order of ukuleles. And this last site's really special to us. You may have seen the Long But Not initiative, I think last year. But this group of students who had volunteered in Kenya heard this story about Omari that had been brutally attacked while trying to defend his orphanage, and they didn't even have a fence to defend themselves. So they created a Weebly website about this, posted it to Reddit, and were able to raise over $100,000 in less than a week for the orphanage. And they built a wall and a fence and much more than that, and that's actually now helping out that orphanage in Kenya. So a little bit about our story and how we got to where we are today. In early 2006, as part of a class project at Penn State, we came up with the same idea. 6 years ago, we thought, why is this so hard? Why is it still so hard to build a website? We're seeing people all around us that were just struggling. And so we came up with the idea. We started working on it. Now I'm going to introduce you to the theme of the presentation here. This is a graph of our new signups per day. This is August 2006. This is real data. And you can see up at the top, it's 6 months after we started working on Weebly. So 6 months after we wrote our first line of code, our grand sign-up day, we got 12 new users. And, it was just kind of friends and family. It was still alpha stage. This wasn't something that was easy to pump out in a month. It was something that was difficult, that took some time to build. So over that summer, Dan and I and Chris were working on it. Here's October 2006, 8 months later. So we've now been writing code and working on the idea for 8 months. We posted a private beta invitation on some forums, and we thought, man, this is going to blow up. And we got about 30 people to sign up that day. So, around this time, I was up pretty late at night, was browsing Slashdot. That kind of tells you also, that was the most popular tech news site back then. And I was reading an article on Y Combinator. And I said, I think I've heard about this company before. I'm not really sure. Started reading the article. Oh, this sounds really cool. This sounds interesting. Oh, application deadlines in 2 hours. Well, I thought, what the hell? I'll put something together really quick. It doesn't hurt to apply. Now, I didn't actually have enough time to call up Dan or Chris to ask them if they'd be willing to drop out of school and move to San Francisco. So I took a guess. I figured, Chris would probably do it. He's a pretty wild guy. And Dan's a pretty wild guy too, but I figured he might want to finish his college career. So, we applied to YC with literally less than an hour to go on the clock. Got accepted for an interview. Drove up to Boston. Interviewed. We thought it was great. Incidentally, the morning of the interview, I wake up, check my phone, I'm reading email, all bleary-eyed, and I got an email from someone. Congrats on the tech crunching. What the hell is this about? So open TechCrunch, it just so happened that TechCrunch had written about us that morning. I'm sure it definitely didn't hurt with the interview. But I also had to explain this graph. This is really important. This is not normally what a TechCrunching looks like. Normally, it goes straight up and straight back down. We had an invitation system in place, to make sure our servers didn't crash, and so that's why you see it spread out over more time. But later that night, Paul told us, expect a call from us by 7 p.m. the same day. We'll let you know if you made it or not. So we were pretty nervous, and we went out to dinner, and we sat down, and literally I remember, 7 p.m. rolled around and 8 p.m. rolled around, and we were all just staring at our plates of food in front of us. Like, we literally couldn't eat. We were so nervous. And then by 9 p.m. we're like, this is it. We're definitely not making it in. They've called everyone they've accepted, and now they're just calling the losers that aren't getting in. So I think around 9:30, the phone call from Paul comes, and I answer it. And literally his first words were, "I'm calling to end your college career." So, funnily enough, I ended up talking to Dan later and said, "Hey guys, do you want to, I know we have a semester left, but it sounds crazy, but how about we just drop out of school, move to San Francisco? What do you think of it?" And Chris was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." And I asked Dan, I'm like, "Dan, what do you think? This is pretty crazy." He's like, "Yeah, I'm on board. This sounds awesome." So, this is a picture of us that we took right after we got that phone call. I think this picture was also right after we each took 3 shots at the bar to celebrate. And this is with our friend Dana. So the next graph is January 2007. So we move out to San Francisco, start the Y Combinator program. It's now 11 months after we started working on Weebly. This is a pretty long time. This is almost a full year after we started writing our first line of code. And I want you to take a look at this graph, and I want you to notice something. This isn't straight up and to the right. It goes straight up. It comes straight back down. Now, maybe you got a couple squiggles here that are a little hopeful, but things aren't looking great. We're getting less than 100 people per day signing up right now, almost a year after we started working on Weebly. This is a picture of our first office. So we literally moved into an apartment. We put 3 desks together. You could really tell how long ago this was because that old-ass TV in the lower right-hand corner, and the 15-inch monitors. And we literally just pushed 3 desks together, put it in the living room, and this is what startup looks like. We just worked our asses off. We had one important rule, which was we took Saturday off. But otherwise, every other waking moment was 24/7 work. It wasn't all bad. We had a great view of the San Francisco Bay. And this is a fun story. This is a little display that Chris hacked up, and he just put it in the middle of the table. And it showed kind of some basic stats. So it showed like load average, which you don't see right here. But it also showed total users and logged in users. And there's 3 logged in users here. That's because it was the 3 of us around the table using Weebly. And one of our biggest moments still, I think, in company history was one night we were sitting there and it went 4, and like we were excited. That was exciting. So, in January 2007, we also got featured on TechCrunch again. This is much more normal. It goes straight up and straight back down. And, again, 11 months after we started working on Weebly. This is April 2007, and there's a couple hard times I also want to share, because sometimes you just hear about the good stuff. You don't hear about the bad stuff. You don't hear about the times that were really hard. This is 14 months after we started working on Weebly. Now, the first thing I want to address on this slide is the sign-up graph. I kind of want you to look at the end there and notice, I think we were just oblivious and very hopeful at the time, but that kind of looks like it's heading down. It's not heading up. It's actually heading in the wrong direction. At this point, April 2007, we were just finishing the YC program. We were really hopeful that we could raise money, but, talking to some angel investors, but at one point we had less than $100 in our bank account. And that's all the money we had. We spent money on 2 things early on. We spent money on rent, and we spent money at the bar. And that's pretty much it. We were pretty hopeful, but rent was coming up in 2 weeks, and we had to pay rent in 2 weeks. So we started talking about raising a friends and family round. We started talking about moving to San Jose to save $800 a month in rent. And luckily we didn't do that. Luckily, sort of right in the nick of time, we ended up raising a $650K angel round from Ron, from Steve Anderson, Mike Maples, a bunch of angels. This is another thing that really dates this story. That big stack of paperwork is what an equity financing looks like. These days, all the financing, most early stage financings are done via convertible note, 2-3 pages tops. This is a fat stack for an equity financing. So, the next big thing for us was being featured in Newsweek. Now, this used to be a really big deal. I don't know today if it's as much of a big deal, but back then this was a huge deal. This was the thing that your parents bought 10 copies of the magazine and forwarded it to everyone they knew. So this was a really big deal 15 months in. That was definitely a high point. And that's what that looks like. So now you're seeing the effect of what being featured in Newsweek looks like. Again, it's a very similar pattern. It goes up, and it comes right back down. You're now noticing, it settles higher. That's definitely a good sign. But it's still going down. It's not going up. This is 15 months after we started working on Weebly. Here's a shot of our office here in July 2007. And that's Dan sitting there, and that's also our stats dashboard that you can kind of see what's going on. Next big moment for us around the same time was being featured in Time. So we were featured in Time as one of the 50 best websites of 2007. So this is